Welcome to lesson number 2. Today we're going to try some Dichroic Filligrana cane, where you are going to learn a whole shit ton about Dichroic glass. I mean a lot. You're going to learn a lot about Dichroic glass. And sailors. So first we need to cut a strip. I do it usually about a ½ inch wide. I use a straight edge on the Dichro plate with the Dichro face down on a pad so not to get scratched. Have a nice sharp cutting wheel in this knife. No oil. Oil is not good for Dichro, it's a bitch to get off, so always cut with your knife dry. Also, to get the best straightest run, one slice is usually sufficient. I sometimes use 2. I actually don't recommend 2. However, I just did it, so let's hope for the best. And bam, perfect cut. You always want to clean your Dichro first really well with rubbing alcohol or something equivalent. Fingerprints and everything shows up on the Dichro, and it also causes the metal to reduce faster, making it gray and nasty. Preheating your Dichro is also very important. So after we get this cleaned up, check for the film side and make sure that's laying upwards, and stick it in the kiln. This out of the way. And just like on a cooking show, I'm one step ahead of the game and actually have a preheated piece of Dichro exactly the same already. So we will pull that out. Make sure there's no dust on it. Cardboard works really good for this. Get it ready to go. Very important to have your flames preset if you can. Dialing into them makes it that much easier. You want to always run a very highly oxidizing flame. If you're using a triple mix torch, that means do not run your blue knobs very high, just enough to help cool the torch itself. But get all the volume from your green knob. Put a punny on one end. Let that fall to center. I'm using jet black to coat this with. Because we're going to fold it in half, the thinner the stringer, like 3 millimeters is optimum. When we're done coating this strip, we're going to fold it. And so, but the thicker amount of glass you have on there, the harder it is to do that cleanly. So coating this patiently with a 3 mil stringer is optimal. I always start at the top side when I'm running these lines down this Dichro plate, simply because the deflection of the heat from the flame is going above the Dichro right now, not blasting what I haven't coated. And once I coat a little more, it's going to be, harmless because it's going to be blasting what's already coated. You want the deflection of the flame to always be going over the strip of Dichro. Once you get 1 or 2 of these laid down that you can use as an edge to run the next one, this process goes pretty quick. keeping my Dichro piece underneath the flame, and my stringer coming at it at a 90-degree angle. The flame kind of bisects that 90-degree angle at a 45-degree angle. For all you geometry wizards out there. As I coat this, I keep the stringer in a stationary position and push the Dichro plate up into where it's being melted. My left hand is what is actually doing the movement. My right is totally stationary and just keeping this black stringer where it's supposed to be in the flame. After I get that completely coated like this, I'm going to rewarm it a little. Melter in. Then I'm going to take a 3mm clear stringer and run it down the sides of this to protect it, any of the flame from kind of sneaking in there and burning the edge of this plate. We call it burning. It's not really burning. It's that what's actually happening with the Dichro is it's reducing because it's too hot and not enough oxygen. So again, the key to making this Dichro and keeping it very blingy is having a ton of oxygen in your flame. Even if you're used to hearing a silent torch, that can't be the case with working Dichro, especially during the process of getting it protected. Once it's protected, you're a little more able to use a wider variety of flame atmospheres. But until this process is finished, it's very important to always hear that oxygen raging. What's actually happening is it's cooling down the flame. And like with, colors, especially striking colors, they're all made from metals. Metals love oxygen. The more oxygen you give them, the more beautiful they are. Slowly getting this ready to fold. Melt this in a little bit better. So I'm going to take another 8mm rod after we get that straightened out there. Making sure that these are both centered is very important. As you can see, we have a very beautiful, crisp, clean plate to start with. So now we're going to gradually heat this whole thing. Specifically concentrating on warming the center most, because that's where we're going to fold it, obviously. Start there, line them up. Work it on down. If it gets a little off center at the end, it's okay. By the time we're done with this, it won't be. I'll show you now how to move it back into place after we get it all laid as one. First, you want to get your end where you just pulled that other punny off of. Nice and good so it doesn't crack and break off during any of the rest of this process. Slowly from this way, you want to keep flattening it out, working your way to the very end. Like that. Now we're going to get it all totally even and ready to start coating and clear. So once we get it to this point, nicely folded, we're going to run some 3mm down the edges right here to kind of seal up that crack that's still in there. Still using a very highly oxygenated flame. Should have made sure I had more 3mm hiding. Sometimes a clean bench is a good idea. I generally preach those words, but kind of hard to when my bench is a disaster. But I'll do the other side the same way as we just did the first one. In a little bit. I'm going to take 8mm rods, back the big flame down a little bit. Our inner flame is nice and hot. And we're going to coat this whole thing. Give us a nice big buildup on here. It's always very important to get a lot of clear glass on the edges. As we work this down and start spinning it up into our cane, the Dichro has a way of moving itself towards the edge. If you don't have enough clear glass on there, by the time you're done stretching out this cane, you have Dichro that's emerged to the surface and is now going to become cloudy and nasty. I don't know if I mentioned it before or not, but the actual sheet of Dichro that I cut to do this Filligrana with is Glass Alchemy's, not Glass Alchemy's, Dichroic Alchemy's Starship sheet. Probably my favorite, if I had to pick one, of any color spectrum of Dichro out there. So we're completely coated, but I want to add just a little bit more glass in this center part here. Helps getting it round a little easier. Just like that. Now we commence melting. At this point, you have enough clear glass on top of this to really give it some heat and not worry about its blinginess so much. It's pretty protected. Still, with the triple mix torch, you want to kind of keep away from the blue now. As much as possible. Or if you do crank it on, work a little further out in the flame. So pay attention to the Dichro. It'll tell you what it needs. You can start to notice when it's getting a little too hot. So I usually get one end melted in kind of good here. To get this twist to start, I'm spinning my right hand just slightly faster than my left. It creates a loose ribbon twist, which we can tighten up later if we so desire. Right now I'm just trying to get this funny fused on here really good. Trying to straighten this thing out as I go along before I start melting it all in. It'll make a much cleaner twist. One of the key things you'll learn with glass is that linear is your friend. The straighter you keep stuff from the get-go, and when it gets off-centered, to go back and recenter during the process, it will make a much easier job for you in the end of creating a very clean end product. A lot of times that means being patient enough to wait until glass cools down in one area before you commence the heating in another area. As many of you notice with the oxygen this raging, the flame gets to be so cool that the working time for this sort of stuff increases tremendously. But there is no give and take with Dichro. That's the way it wants it. So it gets it. Or you have junk. Now that I have my ends kind of melted in good, it's a lot easier to do the rest of this process without worrying about anything cracking upon reheat. It's a big chunk of glass and an expensive piece of glass to lose if this checks all up. Sometimes I like to leave texture in my cane like this. It'll just minimize as you stretch it out, but still look ripped. It's another interesting look. We're not doing this this time. So we have our large version of the Dichro Filligrana cane. We're going to stretch her out a little bit here, thin her down, give us some stuff to play with. We're all melted in really good, so we can go ahead and give it whatever kind of heat we feel necessary. Flame atmosphere is nowhere near as important now as it was. I wouldn't suggest running a reducing flame, but neutral flame works fine. Again, this is why we call it glass blowing. So I want to draw this down into about 10 millimeters. This is a good place to stop at. That way, for whatever you decide to use it for, you can reheat it, draw it down more, whatever. Or it'll be thin enough you can actually work with it into something at that point. When doing this, to have the most control, you want to always keep your flame on the thick part. Don't be blasting your flame on where the taper begins and it starts going down into the 10 millimeter range. Kind of preheat, keeping your rod at 45 degrees to the flame helps to preheat what's before you. So when the flame actually gets to it, it melts clean and consistently. Coming back, straighten this all up. Almost done.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. One very nicely spun rainbow dichroic filigrana cane.